What's up everyone, it's Jerry, and today I'm going to be reviewing a game that makes me believe that Half-Life 3 could still be theoretically great. Have you ever wanted to become a covert scientist learning how to efficiently smuggle crack into black homes? How about doing questionable work involving diseases spreading among the homeless? Is it a dream of yours to use your technology to destabilize not only low-income countries, but low-income dimensions? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then come along, you brilliant bonobos. You're destined for greatness at the GATE Research Facility. The game starts off in the cafeteria as an outbreak of interdimensional beings enters our world due to experiments gone horribly wrong, and then sending everyone in a mad frenzy to get the hell out of Dodge. It's like Rwanda in the early 90s. Time doesn't move until you finally open the doors from the cafeteria to the office sector. So if you want all of your friends to start together, just hold off on freeing Dr. Jacob. We learn the basics, such as GATE is canonically set in California with all the rolling blackouts, and they cause power to shut down from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Being government sponsored doesn't mean immunity to government blackouts. When this happens, the facility will go pitch black and anything plugged in suddenly doesn't work anymore. However, we still have lights, and that's because office lamps don't take power, surprisingly. If you find the office lamps, bring them on home. Some makeshift batteries will solve the problem real fast for when the power outlets go out, and these can be crafted rather easily. The snack bot will also engage in his secondary function at night, and that's being an asset of the state and cracking down on any rule breakers and sending them back to the nearest respawn point faster than peaceful protesters could hit the streets of New York City. Also, when the lights go out, we start to lose heat, and that's not really a problem because you and your buddies can just take off your shirts and huddle together for warmth. If you're playing alone, you can make a heater though. That'll solve that problem. And also, there's a bench upgrade. Another thing we learn about is the crafting bench, and this thing is going to be your holy grail. Getting this thing up and running with a battery and several upgrades are going to make your first night spent feel like you're either at a Motel 6 or at the Marriott. Getting access to tier 2 upgrades at level 5 crafting is important, as it provides the ability to suppress portal storms. You're probably wondering what happens during a portal storm, and I'm glad you're curious about it, little monkey you. Portal storm spawns a finite number of dimensional creatures in your base, and fuck up your midnight jelly sessions. Early on, it'll just be a number of pests, and perhaps a dog alongside them. Overall, they aren't too bad to handle, but as the game does go on and you get further and further, they get a little more difficult, so rushing tier 2 upgrades is a pretty solid idea. You're going to learn that like most great RPGs and survival crafting games, you have an inventory. It's not very large at the start, and you're able to upgrade it with a really shitty perk that upgrades your hotbar with 2 additional items. However, the right answer is to go find backpacks throughout the game. If you took the hotbar perk, feel free to get checked into your nearest mental health facility, as you need to be studied as the specimen you are. For everyone with functioning brain cells, if you rush level 2 office sector, you can get into the data farm, and there will always be a free security pack which will alleviate your inventory problems until you reach manufacturing. However, just because you have the space to store an item, that doesn't mean you had the strength to carry it with you. Weight has differing degrees of movement penalties, and with these penalties comes different ways to earn XP. The more weight you carry, the more strength you build up. However, the only caveat to this is by being too over-encumbered, you get no gains, you just get suffering and failure. Combat's are pretty straightforward for once in these games. Guns are absolute dog shit. Training them is an even bigger pain in the dick. If you're going a guns-only playthrough, rush the crossbow and get that abysmal aim of yours leveled, and then you might be semi-decent. Good luck finding ammo though. It's pretty sparse, like a rainforest in Brazil. Most of it's gone, and nobody wants to give you any. I typically just pump iron to level 5 strength and go get a 2-handed weapon at level 8, as this will allow you to one-hit most enemies all the way into manufacturing. It's at this point you can grab an upgrade, and you're at the top of the tree, baby. You can one-hit everything. 2-handed weapons do some of the heaviest damage in the game, but they're some of the slowest, and even then it's not really a detriment, as it gets better the more you level your strength. This game is primarily meant to be played with friends, and you're allowed to bring up to 5 of your buddies, so 6 of you can play the night away. Think of it as a corporate-sponsored bonding exercise, but this time with people you actually enjoy the company of. Of course, the game can also be played solo, but there's just a certain level of charm by having your buddy be a traditional boogaloo boy wife, taking care of the base and making sure that everyone has weapons to fight with. I like the GATE facility, and not because I'm paid off by anyone to say that. I think the environment for the whole facility is unique, and the areas feel distinct enough, but more importantly, there's a whole level of interconnectedness between everything. The facility is not procedurally generated, but things will be where you expect them to be, including items. However, it's universally agreed upon, the map for this game blows massive ween. The map doesn't show you where you are, but it does show the location for every sector. Kind of like a fog of war with circles on it. But you can only see these circles if you grab the map to add it to your datapad. It is useful for one thing and one thing only, and that's the notes section. These notes will get automatically updated, so you don't have to be a goddamn schizo who writes everything he sees on a notepad on your PC. First area you're going to start off in is the cafeteria. This acts as the tutorial before releasing you to the local hub and the rest of the facility. Unironically, this is one of the best base locations on the map due to the sheer size and the simple fact that it has a permanent oven, a fridge, and most importantly, shutters. There's a few areas in the facility which have shutters, and they're the best naturally occurring defensive structure. You can't break them, you can get behind them. As long as you remember to shut them, that is. As you progress through the office sector, you're going to be able to find your way around a convoluted 3-story area, eventually culminating in the ability to reach 2 portal worlds, Zen and Silent Hill. After going through the portal worlds and unlocking manufacturing, you're going to notice something. That's the tram system, and it's finally available, as long as you open it up when you go to manufacturing the first time. It's very important, because if you miss it, you miss a very quick and easy way back to the forge, and you got to spend 15 minutes running all the way back around. At this point in the game, you'll begin to notice a pattern, as long as that noggin of yours can recognize those sorts of things. Shortcuts are a blessing, and everything typically leads back to that big foyer area in front of the cafeteria, meaning that your first base is most likely already in the most central location. It's a stroke of genius that keeps you from having to uplift your entire home, and to be honest, for that design choice alone, the game goes pretty high up on the list of games that I like to play. I won't go into detail about any of the further areas, as I feel like being a massive ape, and also there's a lot of charm and a lot of fun to be had by just stumbling along and finding this out about yourself. That's enough about the actual gameplay. Now we're gonna get into job. Before we send you out there into the field, you need to get off that unemployment list. This is your class, but if you fuck it up, there's no changing later on. Do it right the first time. First up, we got the lab assistant. You're eager to get to work, but you aren't too experienced. This means for the most part, you're going to be getting in the way a lot. As such, you benefit from being a jack of all trades, but at the cost of no bonus when you're crafting items like your other colleagues. However, you do get to boast about having the highest starting points in the game, and that's something cool to have there. The epidemical bionomicist. You like to hang out in the garden. You also know a thing or two about medicine, and that's where you come in handy the most. It's like when you have a passion for painting and end up being really good at politics. So if you're one of these guys, prepare to be making healing items for the crew. With those 9 starting points to spend, congratulations. You're going to be able to select some pretty cool traits. More on that in a bit. Don't get impatient. Trans-kinematic researchers are a very unique bunch. Just because you're smart doesn't mean you aren't swole. You didn't just pump iron, you figured out how to do it efficiently. As such, that means your bonuses are tailored to making sure that you can stomp almost everything in your way and keep everyone safe. Unfortunately, you don't get a crafting bonus, but hey, who needs to craft when you can just loot your foes? You'll need to craft a lot, or hopefully a colleague can do it for you. You get 8 starting points, which is pretty generous, considering all of your bonuses. Archotechnic consultants are interesting. Not because they're the brightest of the bunch, but you can give this man 2x4s and a screwdriver, and suddenly he's built 14 turrets and he's ready to go to war. These guys are the orcs from Warhammer, and they specialize in building things to do the dirty work for them. If you decide to join these guys, congratulations. You're going to get construction XP when crafting deployable items. You also get 7 starting points. Phytogenic botanists. Why is everything so hard to say? They're the actual plant boys that the medbay nerds wanted to be. They also start with 9 points, and they actually gain agriculture XP when crafting farming related items. If you pick this guy, you will never see foot outside that cafeteria, and you're going to work primarily in tandem with the medical and the chef. Pick any of these 3 if you like base maintenance as your primary function. The somatic gastrologist. He's the chef. You know how to turn disasters into delicacies. Excels when the scout teams bring back monster meat, or when the gardeners actually do their job and grow some fucking food. But your job's going to be cooking up new stews to keep everyone fed, and also that means you're the best support in the game. You get to give out free buffs. With 9 starting points, you get a pretty good potential of traits off the rip. Paratheoretical physicists. These guys excel at one thing and one thing only, and that's throwing shit. They also gain crafting XP from doing the research minigame, which is something interesting, I guess, but it's not super useful. Mainly a cross between knowing how to defend and how to craft. These guys can help at home, or they can go up to the front lines and help out there. At 8 starting points, you got access to some free traits pretty easily. Defense analysts are the definition of crayon munching. These bumbling idiots get to start with some defensive items and a baton, but at a pretty significant cost. You only get 5 starting points and a pretty abysmal skill bonus. The real kick in the fucking dick is that you're forced to start with slow learner, which means for the entirety of this game, you get a 20% debuff to XP gain, and you can't learn recipes by people sharing or picking up items that they drop. In other words, your only use is beating stuff up and bringing it back for everyone. Last but not least, we got the summer intern. Sorry to say this, kid, but you ain't ever getting a PhD, but at least you got the company of your friends. With 12 starting points and no bonuses or force traits whatsoever, this is the learning class. Or at least it would be if the lab assistant didn't do everything a little better. Hey though, these guys excel for challenge runs or build crafting at the clean slate though. Now that you got a job, we gotta run down that trait list. Just like Project Zomboid, your character creation is everything. However, unlike Zomboid, when you die, you don't have to reset your skills and restart, you just simply respawn. That means you get one shot to make your character for a given world, and if you fuck it up, then you're boned. Now, I can let you guys play around with them, but here are some of the traits that I would personally recommend to anyone who's going out into the field. Wrinkly Brain Meat is a no-brainer, causing XP gains that have a 20% buff for only 4 starting points. Decathlon Competitor is another godsend of a choice, coming in at 5 points. With this trait, your sprinting, strength, and throwing gain XP faster, and you get a +3 flat buff to sprinting. This stacks with Wrinkly Brain Meat. You're going to be able to get most of your regular base skills up pretty high with just these 9 points. Thick Skinned is another must-have, as it gives you 50% lower chance to bleed, which happens a lot in later areas and with certain enemies. Taking all 3 of these points has a cost of 12 points, and if you are anyone but the summer intern, that means you gotta take some negatives. These things aren't created equal, and the ones that are essentially free points are Weak Bladder at +1, at the cost of needing to go to the bathroom more. Dry Skin makes you thirsty 20% faster, gives you 3 points, but carry a water bottle, that solves that one. These two together put most classes well over the threshold required for them if you're playing a class that's actually worth a shit. You got skills. You have a whole skill tree alongside those traits, and it's split into 3 categories, being fitness, combat, and survival. Don't let them deceive you though. Fitness has a pretty big effect on combat, and so does survival if you are an engineer. Fitness has the sprinting, strength, throwing, and sneaking skills. Strength is typically turbo leveled by carrying stuff around until level 5, and then you just shake the vending machines until you unlock 2-handed proficiency. Then, it's typically trained like the other skills in this category, which is just by passively doing the activities throughout your game sesh. Combat skills dictate how good you are at using certain weapons. Are you a shooter, or are you a primitive thug who beats people with blunt weapons? Perhaps you may take a proficiency to blades, and you like to harvest as well. Whatever weapons you pick will dictate which skill gets the XP, and sometimes it's not entirely too clear what weapon is which if you didn't read the item description like myself. Crowbars do sharp melee damage, and not blunt like I thought that they would. The only combat skill that isn't weapons related is Fortitude, and that dictates how fast we heal and how much we can get hit. The only way to train this is to get hit by enemies. If you have your buddies hit you, you're gonna have a real fucking sad time realizing, where'd my XP? If you place a trap down trying to game the system, you aren't gonna go anywhere but to an early grave. Survival skills are basically everything else that doesn't fit into the aforementioned categories. Crafting and construction are primarily leveled by building and crafting respectively. First aid, cooking, gardening, and the new fishing skill begin by actually doing these activities. By now, you probably want to know what the hell's going on and why this is happening to you. This game is basically Half-Life without Gordon Freeman. Gate was doing shadowy experiments into interdimensional travel and utilizing the resources of said dimensions to further their research. Some of this research ranges from a never-ending beer cooler to enslaving the local wildlife to do parlor tricks and power batteries. Then there's a whole other faction known as the Order who has been watching you the whole time like a cuck in the corner, and they get to decide whether we live or die. Just like in Half-Life, they decide that the researchers need to be dealt with, and not in no good way. Luckily enough for us, they weren't expecting the nerds to crack their skulls with crowbars and loot their dead comrades to fight back. Deep Field Games, they took the FromSoft approach to passive storytelling, except this time reading the sticky notes is mandatory. An example of this is when I was trying to create the projection matrix and I couldn't figure out how to get the optic. I knew how to get the lens before, but I had forgotten how and where you get it. You had to trade for it at the forge, but I hadn't needed to go there for about 2 hours. So for 45 minutes, my friends and I spent a hell of a time trying to figure it out, looking through all the different recipes and stuff, when all I had to do was open the journal and trade it for a reinforced hose. Don't make the same mistake as me and get railed by the Dunning-Kruger effect. These notes also tell you useful stuff such as enemy weak points, as well as dealing with the touchy-feely stocky man. Overall, this game isn't without its flaws. My main criticism is that the map is complete and utter dog shit. It's usable, but it doesn't feel intuitive, and I guess I kind of wanted to just make my own notes. Another criticism I have of this game is the lack of a 6-seater vehicle. If I can have 6 friends and we want to venture together, I should be able to load everyone up instead of trying to hunt down 2 security guards and splitting the gang up like Mystery Inc. My last main criticism is that at the time of writing this, I want to have more content. With a group of experienced players, you can easily blitz through from start to labs in about 3 3 hours with everyone being a massive sweat. Final score. Abiotic Factor is a great survival crafting game that has really made me appreciate the strides that Deep Field Games takes to ensure that every area feels like it belongs. These guys have me like a crack addict waiting for my next fix when I can play more. Up in the skills level cap was a good idea, and they already have a ton of content and plans to release a ton more. It's well worth the asking price, and for my personal enjoyment, 10 out of 10. Great survival game. Reinventing the wheel here. As always, more content to come, so stay invested by liking the video and subscribing. I do stream on Twitch and YouTube and have socials that I neglect in the description down below. Thank you to everyone who's watched the videos and supported me, and if there's anything you think I should cover next, let me know. Until then, have a good one.